Story 1. A Midnight Cry. It was a cold and eerie night at St. Mary's Hospital. The dimly lit corridors were silent except for the distant hum of medical equipment. In room 204, a young girl named Sarah lay in her hospital bed, unable to sleep due to a severe fever. As the clock struck midnight, a faint sound broke the silence, the haunting cry of a child. Confused, Sarah got out of her bed, ignoring her weakened state, and followed the sound through the winding hallways. The cries grew louder, echoing through the deserted hospital. Her heart pounded in her chest as she turned corner after corner, searching for the source of the distressing wails. But there was no child to be found. Feeling both frightened and curious, Sarah continued her quest, following the cries to the hospital's abandoned wing. A sense of foreboding surrounded her as she entered the shadowy area, and the temperature dropped drastically. The cries grew louder, drawing her toward an old, creaking door at the end of the hallway. With trembling hands, Sarah pushed the door open, revealing a desolate nursery, frozen in time. The child's cries now seemed to emanate from within the room. She stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate. In the corner of the room, there stood a ghostly figure of a little girl, no older than 3 years old, with no face. She continued to cry. Fear gripped Sarah's heart, and she tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. Suddenly, the ghostly child ceased her cries, and the room fell into an eerie silence once more. Sarah's eyes were locked with the ghastly entity. The child beckoned her closer, and against her will, Sarah took hesitant steps forward. Through the ghostly apparition, fragmented images flashed before Sarah's eyes: a hospital room, a frantic doctor, and a grieving mother. The tragic story unfolded in her mind. The ghostly child's name was Lily, and she had been admitted to the hospital many years ago with a severe illness. The doctors did their best to save her, but her condition worsened, and she passed away in the same room where Sarah now stood. It was a heartbreaking and forgotten tragedy. The revelation left Sarah in tears, and she felt an overwhelming sadness for the lost soul before her. Lily's spirit had been trapped in the hospital, unable to move on, and her sorrowful cries haunted the abandoned wing. With a final, mournful look, the ghost of Lily disappeared into the darkness, leaving Sarah alone in the desolate nursery. The room felt colder than ever, and the once comforting moonlight now felt unsettling. As dawn approached, Sarah made her way back to her room, her mind reeling from the chilling encounter. The doctor arrived for his morning rounds and found Sarah visibly shaken. Concerned, he inquired about her well-being. Sarah hesitated, unsure if she should share her horrifying experience. But the weight of the encounter was too much to bear. With trembling words, she told the doctor about the ghostly child she had encountered in the night. The doctor listened attentively, his face growing grave with each detail. He finally revealed the forgotten tragedy of Lily, confirming that the ghostly presence Sarah saw was indeed the spirit of a child who had died in the hospital many years ago. Lily's condition, which tragically left her without a face, was a result of a rare and severe genetic disorder. Doctors could not help the girl then. From that day forward, the legend of the ghostly girl without a face spread throughout St. Mary's Hospital. The staff and patients alike would recount tales of the spectral cries that echoed through the abandoned wing, a reminder of the tragic fate that befell a little girl named Lily, whose spirit still wandered the halls seeking peace. Years passed, and St. Mary's Hospital underwent renovations. The abandoned wing was sealed off, and the nursery where Lily's spirit lingered was no more. But some say that on certain nights, when the moon shines bright and the winds whisper through the halls, the cries of a child can still be heard, a chilling reminder of the hospital's haunted past. Story 2. The Vanishing Shadows. It all began in my elementary school days. The strange occurrences that would haunt my memories for years to come. The first sign that something was amiss was when my friend, Mike, vanished without a trace, along with his entire family. It was as if they had never existed at all, wiped from everyone's memories except mine. I tried to ask my classmates about Mike, but each time, they looked at me with blank expressions, claiming they had no idea who I was talking about. As a young child, this perplexed and frightened me. I wondered if I had imagined Mike and his family, but my gut told me otherwise. Years passed, and as I moved on to college, I thought I had left those strange disappearances behind. But the horrors returned when a student named Emma joined our study group. We became friends quickly, and she was a vibrant and memorable presence in our lives. However, fate had other plans. Half a year into our college journey, Emma vanished without a trace, much like Mike had. Stricken with worry and fear, I asked my fellow group members about her, but to my dismay, they claimed no knowledge of Emma's existence. They could not remember her or any moments we had shared. Emma disappeared even from our common photos. The enigma deepened when I checked college records and found no trace of Emma's enrollment or participation in any classes. It was as if she had never attended the college at all. Panicked and desperate for answers, I approached the dean, but even official documents seemed to have no mention of her. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to comprehend the surreal and chilling truth. There was something sinister happening, something beyond human understanding. It was as if a dark force was erasing the very presence of people from existence, leaving no memory, no records, nothing but a void. I delved into researching the strange disappearances, drawing connections between the victims, Mike, Emma, and possibly others. There were whispered legends and unverified accounts of people who experienced similar phenomena throughout history, but most were regarded as mere myths. Through late-night forums and obscure websites, I connected with others who claimed to have encountered this eerie phenomenon. They called it the Vanishing Shadows, an ominous name that sent shivers down my spine. These stories were hidden in the depths of the internet, buried by those who didn't want to be labeled insane or believed to be telling tall tales. As I dug deeper, I realized that the Vanishing Shadows had no boundaries. People from different backgrounds, age groups, and locations had disappeared, leaving no traces behind. The victims had no common link or pattern that could help explain the cause of their vanishing. The more I uncovered, the more dangerous it became. My friends were concerned for my well-being, but I couldn't let go of this obsession to understand the mystery. My determination to reveal the truth led me down a dark path, one that would bring me closer to the horrifying reality behind the disappearances. One fateful night, as I delved further into the depths of this sinister phenomenon, I received an anonymous message containing chilling images and encrypted files. The sender warned me to stop my investigation or face the same fate as the vanished victims. Fear enveloped me, but curiosity and the need for closure drove me forward. The encrypted files contained evidence of extraterrestrial encounters, UFO sightings, alien abduction stories, and alleged government cover-ups. The pieces began to fall into place. The truth was out there, hidden in plain sight, and it was more terrifying than anything I could have imagined. The aliens were abducting people, erasing their existence from the collective memory of humanity. Each abduction served a mysterious purpose that we could not comprehend. It was a diabolical plan, a horrifying experiment conducted right under our noses. With this newfound knowledge, I knew I was in grave danger. The anonymous sender must have been a fellow truth seeker, someone who had stumbled upon the secrets that I was now unearthing. The aliens didn't want their presence known or their experiments exposed. I had to make a choice, back away and forget everything or continue my investigation, risking my own existence in the process. But how could I turn a blind eye to the plight of those who had vanished, leaving no one to remember them? How could I let this malevolent force go unchallenged? The nights grew longer, and the darkness outside seemed to mirror the darkness within me. I couldn't trust anyone, paranoia gnawed at my mind. Every shadow became a potential threat, every stranger a possible agent of those who wished to silence me. If you are reading this, know that I am one of the few left who remember the vanished, who refuse to let their existence be erased. Be vigilant, be cautious, for the vanishing shadows may be closer than you think. Story 3. The Haunting of Ravenwood Construction Site. I need to get this off my chest and share a chilling experience that happened to my friend Jake and me at an abandoned construction site known as Ravenwood. We decided to explore the site one moonless night, drawn in by the haunting tales surrounding it. The place was said to be cursed, with the construction of a grand house halted due to the tragic deaths of 3 workers. Intrigued yet nervous, we ventured forth, unaware of the horror that awaited us. The skeletal structure of the unfinished house loomed ominously against the darkened sky as we pushed open the creaking gate. We made our way through the overgrown weeds, our footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. To our surprise, we stumbled upon a small playground adjacent to the construction site. Rusty swings swayed in the breeze, their chains groaning, and a dilapidated slide stood as a testament to forgotten memories. But the most unsettling sight was yet to come. As we hesitated, contemplating whether to proceed, we heard a soft giggle echoing through the night. Our hearts pounded in our chests as we exchanged terrified glances. Without warning, a translucent figure emerged from the shadows, the ghost of a little girl. She appeared innocent and frail, dressed in a tattered white dress, her eyes hollow and filled with sadness. Her spectral presence seemed to drain the warmth from the air, leaving behind an icy chill that gripped our very souls. The girl beckoned us forward with a bony finger, her voice barely a whisper. "Will you play with me?" she asked, her tone both plaintive and unsettling. Her request was both inviting and ominous, and we couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. Summoning our courage, we nodded hesitantly, and the little girl's face lit up with a ghostly smile. She led us deeper into the construction site, her gossamer-like figure floating above the ground. We followed, our hearts pounding louder with every step. We arrived at a room within the skeletal structure, filled with forgotten toys and covered in layers of dust. The girl pointed to a tea set arranged on a small table, and we reluctantly joined her for a macabre tea party. The cups and saucers were cold to the touch, and the tea within seemed to be an inky black substance, swirling like a stormy night sky. As we played, the girl's demeanor shifted from playful to somber. Her voice trembled, whispering words that sent shivers down our spines. "I'm trapped here, forever," she murmured. "They took my life, and now I can't leave." Guilt washed over us, as if we were complicit in her suffering. We asked her how we could help, desperate to offer some solace to this tormented spirit. But her response chilled us to the bone. "You must break the curse that binds me," she whispered, her voice a mere breath in the darkness. "The house, the construction, it's all cursed. Find the cursed object and destroy it, only then can I find peace." With those haunting words, the room plunged into darkness. Fear clutched at our hearts as the girl's figure began to fade. Before she vanished entirely, she uttered a warning. "Beware the malevolent spirit that guards the cursed object." We awoke the next morning with the weight of the night's events still lingering in our minds. Determined to help the little girl find peace, we researched the history of Ravenwood construction site and discovered an old newspaper article. According to the article, the construction site had indeed been cursed, and the deaths of the workers were attributed to an accident caused by a malevolent entity. The cursed object was rumored to be a weathered, ornate music box that had been buried within the house's foundation. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, we returned to Ravenwood at dusk, armed with the knowledge and a plan to break the curse. The place seemed even more foreboding as the sun set, casting long shadows over the site. As we entered the construction site, a bone-chilling wind swept through the air. The atmosphere felt charged with an otherworldly presence. We found the room where we had encountered the little girl and began searching for the cursed music box. In the dim light, we stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath the dusty floorboards. Inside, we found the music box, an intricate, aged artifact covered in ancient engravings. As we hesitated, the ghostly laughter of a malevolent spirit echoed through the room. Terrified but resolute, we snatched the music box and fled the construction site. Running as if our lives depended on it, we made it to a nearby lake where we planned to destroy the cursed object. We gathered our courage and threw the music box into the dark waters, watching as it sank beneath the surface. In that moment, a thunderous roar erupted from the lake, and we saw a terrifying apparition rise from the depths, a grotesque, ethereal figure with glowing eyes. The malevolent spirit, enraged by the destruction of the cursed object, lunged at us with an otherworldly fury. We barely managed to escape its grasp, feeling its icy fingers brush against our skin. As we fled from the lake, we knew that we had broken the curse, but we also knew that the malevolent spirit was now unleashed upon the world. The haunting of Ravenwood construction site was far from over, and we couldn't help but wonder what other horrors awaited those who dared to venture there. So, heed our warning, some places are better left undisturbed, and the dark secrets they hold should remain buried in the past. Story 4. Shadows in the Night. I had always been excited about starting a new chapter in my life when I moved to a new apartment. The place seemed cozy, and I thought I'd feel right at home. The first few nights were uneventful, but soon I began hearing strange sounds during the dark hours. I tried to brush them off as typical noises of an old building, but there was something unsettling about them. One fateful night, I was lying in bed, trying to sleep when I felt a gentle touch on my hair. I turned around, expecting to see nothing but shadows. However, my eyes met the gaze of a young girl with pale skin, long black hair, and empty, soulless eyes. Her sinister smile sent shivers down my spine. She was braiding my hair with a macabre delight. My heart pounded in my chest, and a guttural scream escaped my lips. In sheer terror, I tried to flee, but before I could make a move, darkness engulfed me, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up the next morning, I felt groggy and exhausted. For a moment, I thought it was all just a nightmare, but as I stumbled into the mirror in the bathroom, I saw a gray strand in my hair. It wasn't a dream, something sinister had truly happened. Haunted by the night's events, I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment any longer. It had become clear that I was dealing with a supernatural presence, something beyond comprehension. Without wasting any time, I packed my belongings and moved back to my parents' house, seeking solace in familiar surroundings. Though I was away from that eerie apartment, the memory of that night lingered, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that the malevolent presence was still lurking. Determined to find answers, I sought the help of a medium. She had a reputation for communicating with spirits and understanding the unknown. The medium agreed to visit the apartment with me, and upon entering, she immediately sensed a strong presence. Her face turned grim, and her eyes glazed over as if looking into a realm beyond ours. She spoke in a trembling voice, revealing the tale of a troubled spirit that had once inhabited that place. Many years ago, a young girl named Amelia had lived there, subjected to a tragic fate. She was accused of poisoning her fiancé, but it wasn't her fault. She had been battling severe depression, and one fateful night, her heart gave out, leading to her untimely death. Amelia's tormented soul had never found peace, and she remained trapped in the apartment. As chilling as the revelation was, I knew I had to face Amelia and find a way to free her tormented soul. With the medium's guidance, I returned to the apartment, carrying a sense of both fear and compassion for the spirit haunting the place. Amelia's presence manifested once more, her sorrowful eyes peering into my soul. This time, though, there was no malice in her gaze. With the medium acting as an intermediary, I conveyed my empathy for her suffering and expressed my willingness to help her move on. As we spoke, Amelia's demeanor changed from menacing to mournful. She was no longer the vengeful spirit I had encountered before. With a spectral sigh, she began to fade, her form dissolving into the ethereal mist. It was a haunting farewell, but I knew it was for the best. With Amelia's spirit finally at rest, the apartment felt different. The unsettling aura had dissipated, leaving behind only memories of the past. Though it was a chapter filled with horror and the unknown, I felt a strange sense of closure. Life took me on a different path after that. I found a new apartment, but this time, I ensured it was free from any malevolent spirits. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I still feel a faint touch on my hair, as if Amelia's spirit is still close, watching over me. And as I close my eyes, I can't help but wonder what other chilling tales lie waiting to be uncovered in the shadows of the unknown. Story 5. Ghostly Photo Shoot. This happened to my friends, Jenny and Alicia, just last week. They decided to do a unique photo shoot on the roof of an abandoned multi-story building. Little did they know what horrors awaited them there. Jenny and Alicia were thrill seekers, always on the hunt for the perfect shot. They loved exploring eerie locations to capture the essence of fear in their photography. So, when they stumbled upon the rundown building, they couldn't resist the temptation to venture inside. As they climbed the decaying staircase, they heard unsettling sounds, creaks echoing through the dark corridors and eerie whispers that sent shivers down their spines. But they pressed on, fueled by adrenaline and the promise of exceptional photographs. Finally, they reached the roof. The city lights below bathed them in an eerie glow, adding to the mystique of the place. Jenny set up her camera, and Alicia posed fearlessly, her excitement masking her unease. The tension in the air was palpable as Jenny counted down to take the shot. Click. The flash illuminated the desolate rooftop, freezing the haunting moment in time. But as they reviewed the picture on the camera's display, their blood ran cold. In the background stood a faint, ghostly figure, a shadowy silhouette with hollow eyes staring back at them. What the? Alicia gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. Jenny tried to rationalize it. It's probably just a trick of the light or some camera glitch. Let's take another one. They took several more shots, hoping the ghostly figure would disappear, but it remained in every frame, each time seemingly more distinct and ominous. Unease turned to terror, and they decided it was time to leave. As they hurried down the stairs, the whispers grew louder, and unseen hands seemed to reach out for them, chilling their skin. They made it outside, breathing heavily, and the feeling of dread started to lift. But when they finally looked at the photos on their computers, the true horror revealed itself. The ghostly figure had grown more defined, a sinister grin etched on its face, as if it were taunting them from the other side. Panicked, they deleted the photos, hoping to erase the chilling presence from their lives. But the ghostly figure seemed to linger, haunting their memories even when the pictures were gone. Over the next few days, Jenny and Alicia's lives descended into chaos. They heard inexplicable noises in their homes, objects moved on their own, and unsettling dreams plagued their nights. The ghostly figure seemed to have latched onto them, feeding off their fear. Desperate for a solution, they sought the help of a seasoned paranormal investigator. The investigator, intrigued by their story, agreed to visit the abandoned building with them. Armed with advanced equipment, they entered the sinister place once more. As they explored, they felt the malevolent presence grow stronger. The investigators set up cameras and recording devices, and for a while, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But when they played back the recordings, they were met with bone-chilling screams and sinister laughter that sent chills down their spines. The investigator's face turned pale. This place is haunted, no doubt about it. With a shaky hand, he handed Jenny and Alicia a talisman, telling them it might offer some protection. The investigator performed a cleansing ritual, trying to free the building from the malevolent entity's grip. But as they left, the ghostly figure manifested before them, its ghastly form blocking their path. The talisman glowed faintly, but the malevolence was too strong to be dispelled so easily. In sheer desperation, Jenny took out her camera one last time and snapped a picture of the sinister apparition. The flash temporarily blinded them, and when they regained their sight, the ghostly figure was gone. Jenny and Alicia couldn't believe it, but when they reviewed the photo, the ghostly figure was no longer there. The ritual had seemingly banished the entity from the building, setting it free. Yet, as they left the abandoned building behind, they couldn't shake the feeling that the malevolent presence had attached itself to them, a silent reminder that some horrors refuse to be left behind in the dark corners of forgotten places. And so, dear friends, be wary of the photographs you take, for they may capture more than just memories. They might immortalize the chilling presence of the unknown. Story 6. Becoming the Monster, a terrifying descent into darkness. I need your help. Something really weird is happening to me, and I can't explain it. Lately, I've been feeling different, like I'm changing into something monstrous. I don't know if it's a mental thing or if there's something sinister going on, but I can't shake this feeling of dread. It all started a few weeks ago. I noticed I was getting angrier than usual, and my temper was becoming uncontrollable. Little things that used to barely bother me now set me off into a rage. I thought it was just stress at first, but it's gotten worse. 3 days ago, I woke up with scratches all over my arms this morning. Deep, painful ones. And I know I didn't do this to myself. I live alone, so there's no one else here who could have done it. I'm genuinely freaking out now. What's happening to me? I'm really scared. Last night, I blacked out and woke up in the woods covered in mud and blood. I can't remember anything that happened. My mind feels foggy, like there are chunks of time missing. I'm scared I might be hurting people without even knowing it. I tried seeing a therapist, hoping they could help me make sense of this madness. But every time I tried explaining what's going on, they looked at me like I was some kind of lunatic. They insisted it was just stress, but it's more than that. I know it. I've been documenting everything, trying to find a pattern, some clue to what's happening. My journal is filled with dark ramblings, drawings of grotesque creatures, and strange symbols I don't even recognize. It's like someone else is writing and drawing in my journal, not me. The nightmares are relentless. I dream of being chased by shadowy figures, faceless monsters that haunt me even when I'm awake. I can't sleep anymore, the fear is paralyzing. I'm so tired, but every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that nightmare, running for my life. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. The hunger inside me grows stronger with each passing day. I find myself eyeing people on the street, wondering what it would be like to sink my teeth into their flesh. What's happening to me? This isn't who I am. I tried locking myself away, thinking that if I isolated myself, I'd be safe from hurting others. But it's no use, I can't fight this monster inside me. It's getting harder to resist the urges, to suppress the darkness that threatens to consume me. I've made a decision. I can't put anyone else in danger. Tonight, I'm going to the police and turning myself in. Maybe they can figure out what's wrong with me, and if not, at least I'll be behind bars, away from innocent people. Update. I'm writing this from a dark, cold cell. They don't believe my story, and I can't blame them. They think I'm some kind of deranged killer, and maybe they're right. I can feel the monster inside me clawing at the surface, begging to be unleashed. I don't know if I'll make it out of here alive, but I had to share my story with you. If anyone else is going through something similar, please seek help before it's too late. Don't let the darkness take over. Remember me, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find a way to stop it. Story 7. The Malevolent Marionette, A Tale of Terrors. You know those creepy dolls that we all have nightmares about? Well, brace yourselves, because this story isn't just some childhood fright. It's my personal account of a horrifying encounter with a doll that came to life. It all began innocently enough when I inherited an old, antique marionette from my deceased grandmother's estate. The doll had a twisted, sinister look, with beady, lifeless eyes and a devilish grin. but I thought nothing of it and decided to keep it as a memento. Little did I know that my decision would turn my life into a living nightmare. It all started with strange noises in the middle of the night. Creaking floorboards, faint whispers, and the eerie sound of puppet strings being pulled. I brushed it off at first, blaming it on the old house settling or my imagination running wild. One night, as I was tossing and turning in bed, I heard a soft voice calling my name. Sarah. Sarah. It whispered, sending shivers down my spine. My heart raced as I sat up, scanning the room in the dim moonlight. That's when I noticed it. The marionette was standing on my nightstand, staring directly at me. I tried to rationalize it, thinking I must have left the doll in that position earlier, but the feeling of unease lingered. I hesitantly reached out and placed the doll on a shelf across the room, hoping that would be the end of it. But it was far from over. Every night, the same pattern repeated itself. I would wake up to the sound of my name being called, and each time, the malevolent marionette would be closer to my bed. Its sinister grin seemed to grow wider with each passing night, filling me with dread. Things took a terrifying turn when I started having vivid nightmares. In these dreams, the marionette came to life in a nightmarish puppet show. It danced and pranced with a haunting elegance, pulling invisible strings that manipulated my movements as if controlling me like a puppet. I couldn't escape its gaze, even when awake. I'd catch the doll's eyes following me around the room, and sometimes I swore I could hear it giggle softly. My sanity was unraveling, and I couldn't comprehend how this lifeless doll could have so much power over me. One night, as I lay paralyzed with fear, the marionette crept closer to my bed than ever before. It stood on the edge of the mattress, hovering over me, its strings seemingly suspended in midair. It whispered dark secrets and sinister threats, and in that moment, I knew it wanted more than just to terrify me. With trembling fingers and a racing heart, I snatched the malevolent marionette and carried it down to the basement. My hands were clammy with dread, but I knew what had to be done. I gathered some old newspapers, doused the doll in gasoline, and set it ablaze. As the flames consumed the sinister puppet, I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. The doll's painted grin twisted grotesquely as it melted, and a pungent odor filled the air. It was as if the malevolence within the doll was fighting to survive, to find another vessel to latch onto. But I stood firm, watching the doll burn until nothing but ashes remained. As the fire died down, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, as if a dark cloud had finally dissipated. That night, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I slept soundly. There were no whispers, no nightmares, and no eerie presence lurking in the shadows. It was as if the malevolent marionette had been banished from my life once and for all. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare wasn't truly over. I couldn't forget the way the doll had moved, the haunting voice it spoke with, and the malevolence that radiated from its lifeless eyes. I knew I had to be cautious and stay vigilant, just in case the evil spirit found a way to return. In the following days, I researched the doll's origins, trying to understand how it became infused with such darkness. My investigations led me to a chilling discovery: the marionette had a long history of tragedy and death associated with it. Legend had it that it was crafted by a vengeful puppeteer who used it for revenge on his offenders. I couldn't help but wonder if the malevolence had been trapped within the doll all along, waiting for an unsuspecting victim to cross its path. Now, with the doll reduced to ashes, I share this update as a warning to all who might stumble upon cursed objects in their own lives. Don't underestimate the power of evil entities lurking in the shadows. And if you ever find yourself face to face with malevolence, take action before it's too late. But despite the doll's destruction, there's a lingering fear in the back of my mind. What if the malevolent spirit found another way to haunt me? What if it's not truly gone? I can't shake the feeling that my encounter with the marionette has left an indelible mark on my life. Story 8. Nightmare mentions terrifying truth. In the small town of Silent Shade, nestled deep within a dense forest, there was a legend that spoke of a cursed mansion. The locals dared not speak its name aloud, for they believed uttering it would invite the malevolent spirits residing within to their very doorsteps. Among the children of Silent Shade, the tale of the haunted mansion was their favorite scary story, told under hushed whispers during moonlit nights. One night, a boy named Kevin, with curiosity burning in his heart, decided to explore the dilapidated mansion despite the warnings of the townsfolk. He was drawn to the mystery that surrounded it and convinced himself that it was all a superstitious fable meant to scare the naive. As Kevin approached the mansion, the moon disappeared behind thick clouds, plunging him into darkness. He hesitated for a moment, but his adventurous spirit propelled him forward. Creaking floorboards echoed through the halls, and shadows seemed to dance with malevolence. The place oozed a sinister aura that sent shivers down Kevin's spine. In one of the rooms, Kevin stumbled upon a peculiar mirror that seemed to have an eerie presence of its own. It was intricately carved with grotesque faces and twisted vines, its surface appearing to ripple like black water. Hypnotized by the mirror, Kevin couldn't pull his gaze away. As the night wore on, the wind howled outside, matching the rising terror within Kevin's heart. In his dreamlike trance, he saw a horrifying scene unfold in the mirror, a nightmarish figure with hollow eyes and elongated limbs reaching out for him. The figure's sinister grin sent a chilling wave of fear through Kevin's soul. With a jolt, Kevin woke up in his own bed, relieved that it was just a nightmare. He tried to forget the haunting image from his dream, convincing himself it was nothing more than his imagination running wild. However, as the day progressed, strange occurrences began to unfold. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows in the town seemed to grow longer and twisted. Familiar faces appeared distorted and faint echoes of eerie laughter filled the air. Kevin's heart pounded in his chest as he remembered the nightmare and the mirror. Attempting to shake off the unease, he decided to play in the park with his friends. Yet, the swing set began to sway on its own, and the merry-go-round spun without any children pushing it. Kevin's friends looked at him with terror-filled eyes, suspecting that something was terribly wrong. Night descended once more, and with it came suffocating darkness that engulfed Silent Shade. Kevin knew he had to confront the cursed mansion to put an end to this waking nightmare. Armed with nothing but his trembling courage, he marched towards the haunted mansion. As Kevin reached the mirror, he felt an invisible force pulling him closer. Reluctantly, he looked into its murky depths, and there it was, the same nightmarish figure from his dream. The creature reached out with its elongated arms, threatening to escape the confines of the mirror. Summoning every ounce of bravery, Kevin took a deep breath and smashed the mirror with a nearby chair. A deafening screech filled the room, and the figure seemed to dissipate into the air. The mansion trembled, and the malevolent presence that once lingered vanished. As the mirror shattered, so did the twisted reality that had plagued Silent Shade. The next day, the town woke to find everything had returned to normal. The cursed mansion, now merely a decrepit ruin, no longer held any power over the town's fate. But deep down, Kevin knew that the memory of that terrifying nightmare would forever haunt his dreams. He had learned the hard way that some tales were better left untold, and the horrors that lurked in the darkness should never be awakened. And so, Silent Shade continued to thrive, but its children never spoke of the nightmare that had come true, praying that it would never revisit their peaceful town again. Story 9. Nightmare Curse Unleashed. In the small, quiet town of Willowbrook, a chilling nightmare began to unfold. It all started with a boy named Tommy, who had been suffering from recurrent nightmares for weeks. Each night, he would wake up in a cold sweat, gasping for breath, and unable to shake off the haunting images that played in his mind. One particular night, Tommy's nightmare took a more sinister turn. In his dream, he found himself wandering through a desolate forest where the moon's pale light barely penetrated the thick canopy of twisted trees. As he walked, the ground beneath him felt soft and squishy, as if it were made of rotting flesh. The silence was oppressive, broken only by eerie whispers that seemed to come from all directions. In his nightmare, Tommy suddenly stumbled upon a ghastly scene. He saw his own lifeless body lying on the forest floor, surrounded by shadowy figures that looked like specters from another world. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and they chanted ominous incantations that sent shivers down his spine. The nightmare was so vivid and unsettling that when Tommy woke up the next morning, he couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that clung to him like a dark cloud. He tried to convince himself that it was just a dream, but the memory was too real, too visceral, to be dismissed easily. As the day progressed, the nightmare's chilling grip on reality tightened. Strange occurrences began to unfold throughout Willowbrook. People reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their vision, only to disappear when they turned to look. Unexplained whispers echoed in empty rooms, and the temperature seemed to drop significantly in certain areas of the town. But the true terror came when Tommy's friends and family started experiencing their own nightmarish scenes coming to life. Sarah, his best friend, had dreamt of drowning in a lake, and that same afternoon, she narrowly escaped a near-drowning incident while swimming at the town's lake. Tommy's mother, Jennifer, dreamt of a ferocious fire consuming their house, and that day, a faulty wire caused an unexpected fire that almost gutted their home. Thankfully, the fire department arrived just in time to prevent a complete disaster. The town's once serene atmosphere turned into a cauldron of fear and paranoia. Everyone tried to make sense of the inexplicable nightmare phenomenon plaguing their lives. People barricaded their homes, afraid that the next night would bring them face to face with their darkest fears. Tommy, burdened with guilt and despair, felt responsible for the escalating horrors. He knew deep down that his nightmares were causing these nightmares to manifest in reality. With each passing day, the line between dream and reality blurred, and the town's descent into darkness seemed unstoppable. Desperate to end the nightmare's cycle, Tommy sought the help of an elderly woman rumored to be a wise sage and a powerful healer. The woman, known as Madame Alara, lived at the outskirts of the town in a secluded cottage. When Tommy arrived at her home, he found her sitting by a flickering candle, her piercing eyes fixed on him. He poured out his story, recounting his nightmares and the dreadful events that followed. Madame Alara listened intently, nodding slowly. "You are not the cause, young one," she said with a calm voice. "The nightmares are but a symptom of something much darker at play." She explained that an ancient malevolent force had taken root in the town long before Tommy's nightmares began. The nightmare realm was bleeding into reality, feeding on the town's collective fears and manifesting their darkest dreams. Tommy's nightmares were merely a conduit, not the origin of the malevolence. Determined to put an end to the nightmare's grip, Madame Alara and Tommy performed a ritual at the heart of the forest where the shadows first consumed his dreams. The ritual was arduous, but with each incantation, the forest seemed to grow lighter and the malevolent presence weakened. The next morning, the sun rose over a town no longer tormented by its nightmares. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and people began to feel hope again. The nightmares that had come to life ceased to haunt them, and life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Tommy's nightmares eventually subsided, and he learned to confront his fears head-on. The town of Willowbrook became a tale of resilience, teaching its inhabitants the strength that lay within them to face the darkest of nights and emerge into the light once more. But the memory of those harrowing days remained etched in their hearts, a constant reminder of the fragility of dreams and the power of the subconscious to shape reality in the most terrifying ways. Story 10. The Diary of Shadows. It was a dreary autumn afternoon when Emma stumbled upon an old, decrepit mansion while exploring the outskirts of town. Drawn to its eerie allure, she cautiously entered the abandoned building, her curiosity getting the best of her. Dusty cobwebs adorned the corners, and the scent of decay filled the air. Emma's heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear as she explored the dimly lit rooms. In one of the rooms, hidden beneath a pile of tattered books, she discovered a leather-bound diary with the words "Diary of Shadows" etched on its cover. Intrigued, she began to read. The diary belonged to a woman named Lydia, who lived in the mansion decades ago. Emma was captivated by Lydia's hauntingly beautiful handwriting, but it was the chilling content that left her trembling. Lydia's entries foretold the future with uncanny accuracy. The dates and events matched Emma's current reality with astonishing precision. As she turned the pages, she learned of personal details she had never shared with anyone, secrets buried deep within her heart. Fear took hold of her as she realized that the diary held the power to predict her fate. The diary spoke of ominous omens, visions of a dark and malevolent presence lurking in the shadows. The entries grew darker and more horrifying as they recounted nightmarish scenarios that Lydia claimed she could not prevent. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was now trapped in the same web of fate, destined to experience the horrors that the diary foretold. One particular entry gripped Emma's attention, describing a night of terror that would befall her in the very mansion she now stood. According to the diary, a spectral figure would emerge from the shadows to claim her soul. Desperate to escape her prophesied fate, she decided to leave the mansion immediately. But as she made her way to the exit, an ominous feeling enveloped her. Darkness fell quickly, and the mansion transformed into a sinister labyrinth. The once familiar rooms became distorted, and every corner seemed to hold a malevolent secret. Emma tried to stay composed, reassuring herself that the diary was just a tale woven by an imaginative author. Yet, the diary's accuracy had already seeped into her mind, and her fear intensified with each step she took. In her frantic attempt to escape, Emma found herself retracing her steps, stuck in a maze of seemingly identical hallways. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest as the echoes of her footsteps filled the air. The diary's chilling words echoed in her mind, making her feel like a puppet dancing to an unseen conductor's malevolent tune. Finally, she stumbled upon a room she hadn't seen before. The atmosphere within felt oppressive, and a faint, otherworldly glow emanated from a mysterious object in the center of the room. With trembling hands, she approached the source of the eerie light and found an ornate silver mirror. It was the portal to another realm, a world beyond reality, where time and space blurred together. Unable to resist the compulsion, Emma gazed into the mirror, and her reflection stared back at her with hollow eyes. In that moment, she felt a force pulling her into the abyss. Her surroundings warped and twisted, and a ghastly figure emerged from the depths of the mirror. The spectral entity, as foretold in the diary, reached out with cold, ethereal fingers to claim her soul. Terrified and helpless, Emma's world faded to black. The next morning, the townspeople discovered the mansion's doors wide open, but there was no sign of Emma. Only the Diary of Shadows remained, as a testament to her ominous disappearance. Some say she became trapped in the mirror, forever doomed to wander the dark realm beyond, while others believe the diary itself was cursed and had claimed her soul. Whatever the truth may be, the Diary of Shadows remained, a foreboding testament to the perils of peeking into the future, a haunting reminder that some destinies cannot be escaped, no matter how terrifying they may be. And so, the eerie legend of Emma's encounter with the cursed diary lived on, whispered by the townspeople on stormy nights, forever shrouded in mystery and fear. Story 11. The Ever-Changing Nightmare. I need your help. Something bizarre is happening to me, and I can't explain it. Every time I wake up, I'm a different person. I know it sounds insane, but trust me, it's real. It all started a week ago. I woke up one morning and felt different. Confused, I looked around my room, and everything seemed unfamiliar. I checked the mirror, and to my shock, I was staring at a completely different face, a stranger's face. My heart raced, and I thought I was losing my mind. The next day, it happened again. I woke up as someone else. A different body, a different life. It's like I'm living in someone else's skin, experiencing their memories, their emotions. At first, it was intriguing, like being a part of a fantastical adventure. One day I was a soldier, battling in a war zone. The next, a famous celebrity, walking red carpets and signing autographs. Each day, the transition felt smoother, as if my mind was adapting to the ever-changing reality. As days turned into weeks, the novelty wore off, and the nightmares began. I would wake up in terror, memories of horrific experiences plaguing my mind. It was like my subconscious was trying to process the trauma of the people whose lives I lived for a day. I tried seeking help from medical professionals, but they found nothing wrong with me. They dismissed it as a psychological disorder, but I knew it was something else, something sinister. Last night was the worst. I woke up in a dimly lit room, surrounded by eerie silence. Panic set in as I realized I was not alone. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering unintelligible words. I couldn't control my body as it moved towards a chilling altar. Before I knew it, my hands were covered in blood, a knife resting in my grip. I was committing unspeakable acts, controlled by some malevolent force. The screams echoed in my head as I tried to resist, but it was futile. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm afraid to sleep, to wake up as someone else, and to be haunted by the darkness that lurks within these different lives. I'm losing my sanity, and I fear I'll eventually hurt someone in one of these horrifying states. If anyone has experienced something similar or knows how to stop this, please help me. I'm trapped in this nightmarish cycle, and there seems to be no way out. Each awakening is worse than the last, and I fear the next one will be my last. Remember me, the person I used to be, not the monster I've become. The horror continues, and I can't bear it any longer. Story 12. I just found out I'm an alien. A few weeks ago, I overheard my parents talking late at night. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't resist eavesdropping. To my horror, they were whispering about me. I heard phrases like his true identity and we can't let him find out. My heart was pounding, and my mind raced with terrifying possibilities. The next day, I confronted my parents, and they reluctantly sat me down for a serious talk. They told me that I wasn't really their biological child, but an alien they found years ago crash-landed in a nearby forest. They showed me some strange symbols etched into my skin that they claimed proved their story. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but the symbols on my body were undeniable evidence. They seemed genuinely scared, like they were hiding a dark secret. I couldn't shake the feeling that my whole life had been a lie. As days went by, I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. My parents acted increasingly paranoid, constantly peeking through the curtains and urging me not to go outside. They even disconnected the internet, saying that it was for our protection. The isolation was starting to drive me insane, and I needed answers. My best friend, Mike, had always been my confidant. Despite everything, I decided to trust him with the truth. I expected him to laugh it off, but instead, his face turned pale. He told me he had noticed something strange about me too, like how I always seemed to know what people were about to say or do. It was as if I could read their minds. I can't even begin to describe how terrifying that revelation was. To think that I might not even be human, that I was some sort of mind-reading alien freak, filled me with dread. But the nightmare didn't end there. One night, I woke up to strange noises outside my window. I tiptoed over, my heart pounding in my chest, and peeked through the blinds. There, bathed in the eerie moonlight, were shadowy figures wearing dark suits, lurking around my backyard. They seemed to be scanning the area with strange devices, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were searching for me. I wanted to call the police, but I knew they wouldn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed it myself. I felt so lost, so trapped in a world that wasn't my own. The next day, I confronted my parents again, demanding answers. They reluctantly admitted that there were others like me, aliens hidden among humans, and these figures were part of some secret organization tasked with finding us. Fear consumed me as I realized that my existence was a ticking time bomb. If these people found me, who knew what they would do? I couldn't trust anyone, not even my own parents. Now, I'm on the run, hiding in motels and abandoned buildings, trying to stay one step ahead of those who seek to capture me. Every time I close my eyes, I see those dark-suited figures lurking in the shadows. Story 13. The Sleepover with Vampires. It was a dark and stormy night in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Rosewood Hills. Everyone knew the gossip that had been circulating. The new neighbors that moved in were said to be vampires. Their mysterious arrival, pale skin, and odd nocturnal habits fueled the chilling rumors. But no one dared to confront them for fear of the unknown. One day, a group of adventurous kids named Max, Sarah, and Alex, who were fascinated by spooky tales, decided to put their courage to the test. They hatched a plan to ask for the invitation of their classmate, Chris, who lived right next to the rumored vampires, for a sleepover. Chris had always been skeptical of such stories, so the idea excited him more than it scared him. The kids gathered in Max's room, their faces glowing with excitement. "Guys, I have an idea," Max said, leaning in close. "Let's ask Chris to invite us for a sleepover tomorrow night. It'll be the perfect opportunity to prove that the neighbors aren't vampires." Sarah smirked. "Oh, I like where this is going. We'll stay up all night, keep an eye on the new neighbors." Alex chimed in, "But what if they really are vampires? We should be careful, you know." Max dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Nah, that's just an old tale. They're probably just regular people. It's time to debunk the myth." The following evening the four friends huddled together, exchanging whispers and making plans for their stakeout. As darkness fell upon Rosewood Hills, they peeked out of window, watching the new neighbor's house. Oddly enough, they hadn't seen the mysterious family all day. But soon, dim lights flickered to life in the house, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Dude, they're awake," Chris exclaimed, half frightened and half excited. Max grinned confidently. "Let's go outside and check it out." With adrenaline pumping through their veins, the kids sneaked out of the house, guided only by the moonlight. They crept closer to the vampire neighbor's residence, their hearts pounding in their chests. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the air, sending shivers down their spines. An eerie silence fell over the neighborhood, and the distant sound of wolves howling only added to the suspense. As they approached the house, they noticed an open window on the ground floor. Max, being the bravest of the bunch, decided to take a peek inside. What he saw sent a cold chill down his spine. The room was adorned with ancient-looking furniture and decorations that hinted at a time long past. In the center of the room stood a large wooden coffin, its lid slightly ajar. But what horrified Max the most were the dark, blood-red stains on the floor. "Guys, I think we should go back," Alex stuttered, his voice quivering with fear. "No way. We came this far. Let's find out the truth," Max insisted. Just then, a door creaked open, and the kids froze in terror. A tall, pale figure emerged from the shadows. It was Mr. Vladislaus, the patriarch of the rumored vampire family. "You children shouldn't be here," he said in a low, chilling voice. "This is not a place for the living." Chris, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity, mustered the courage to ask, Are you really vampires?" Mr. Vladislaus let out a deep, haunting laugh. "Vampires? Oh, my dear children, those are just tales. We are something far more sinister. But fear not, we do not harm the innocent." As Mr. Vladislaus spoke, the kids noticed his eyes glinting with an otherworldly glow. He continued, "You've trespassed into our domain, yet you seem unafraid. I sense potential in you all. Would you like to learn the secrets of the night? Mr. Vladislaus told the kids a story about his family. They had moved to Rosewood Hills seeking refuge from a world that couldn't understand or accept their unique gifts. They were not vampires as the townspeople believed, but rather an ancient lineage of sorcerers with a connection to the realm of shadows. Mr. Vladislaus, the current patriarch, was a powerful sorcerer who had lived for centuries thanks to a secret elixir that granted him prolonged life. Over time, he had mastered the art of concealing his powers and living among regular humans, which only fueled the legends surrounding his family. His wife, Lady Seraphina, was a graceful and bewitching woman, possessing the ability to weave illusions and control minds. Her ethereal beauty often left people entranced, adding to the rumors of her vampiric nature. Their children, twins named Evander and Isadora, had inherited their parents' magical prowess. Evander excelled in the manipulation of fire and could summon it at will, while Isadora had a unique gift for communing with animals and plants. However, despite their seemingly fearsome abilities, the Vladislaus family was not malevolent. They lived by a strict code of ethics, using their powers only for protection and never resorting to harm. The Vladislaus family's move to Rosewood Hills was spurred by an event that threatened their secret existence. A rogue group of dark sorcerers had learned of their lineage and sought to exploit their powers for their nefarious purposes. Fearing for their safety, the family decided to relocate to a quiet, unsuspecting town. They chose Rosewood Hills, with its idyllic charm and unassuming nature, as their new home. Here, they hoped to live in peace, blending in with the ordinary residents and avoiding unnecessary attention. Rather than punishing the children for intruding, Mr. Vladislaus saw an opportunity to enlighten them about the reality of their world. He explained that they were not vampires but sorcerers with a deep connection to the shadows and the forces of nature. The kids listened in awe as Mr. Vladislaus shared stories of his family's past, their struggles, and the responsibility they bore to protect the balance between light and darkness. He also warned them about the dangers of meddling with dark magic and the artifact they had found, urging them to return it and forget what they had seen. As dawn approached, the kids bid farewell to the Vladislaus family, their minds filled with newfound knowledge and understanding. They promised to keep their secret safe and to cherish the memories of their extraordinary encounter. In the weeks that followed, the kids refrained from spreading rumors about the Vladislaus family, instead keeping the truth to themselves. And so, the Vladislaus family continued to live in Rosewood Hills, their legacy intertwined with the town's history. The legends of vampires eventually faded away, replaced by stories of a reclusive yet enigmatic family who watched over the town from the shadows, silently protecting it from the forces of darkness. But the memory of that extraordinary night stayed with Max, Sarah, Alex, and Chris, reminding them that sometimes the most fantastical tales held a glimmer of truth hidden within the veils of mystery. And Rosewood Hills remained a place where magic and reality blurred, guarded by the ancient sorcerers known as the Vladislaus family. Story 14. The Grandfather Clock's Sinister Whisper. It all began when my dear old uncle passed away. As the only living relative, I inherited his eerie mansion, a creaky old place with hidden passages and a rather intimidating atmosphere. Among the peculiar items inside the mansion was a large, ornate grandfather clock that had been in our family for generations. The mansion's creepy vibe seemed to revolve around that antique clock, which ticked and tocked with an unsettling rhythm. I would often hear strange noises at night, but I brushed it off as the typical noises old houses make. However, one gloomy evening, as I was passing by the clock, it happened. The ticking turned into a soft, eerie whisper as if someone was speaking in hushed tones. At first, I thought I was going mad, but the whisper persisted. As I listened closely, I could discern words, a voice from the beyond, urging me to do unspeakable things. It started with vague suggestions, then grew more sinister and disturbing. Each night, the clock's eerie whisperings became louder, more insistent. As the days went by, I became increasingly paranoid, fearing that someone or something was watching me. The clock's words echoed in my mind, and I couldn't escape its malevolent presence. The mansion's eerie aura intensified, and I felt like I was trapped in a nightmarish reality. Desperate for answers, I sought the help of a local historian who knew about the mansion's dark history. He explained that the clock had been connected to a cursed artifact used in ancient rituals to communicate with spirits from the underworld. The artifact was meant to convey the wishes of a malevolent entity, and I had unwittingly become its receiver. My friends and I gathered around the malevolent timepiece, nerves on edge, knowing that this was a dangerous task. We took the clock outside. Armed with hammers and chisels, we struck at the ancient clock, hitting it with all our might. The clock seemed to resist, as if fighting to maintain its grip on the supernatural realm it had tapped into. But we didn't relent, and with every strike, the whispers weakened. As we struck the final blows to the malevolent grandfather clock, a sense of triumph washed over us. The clock's sinister whispers faded into nothingness, and with every strike, the tension in the room dissipated. But as the clock's wooden frame splintered into pieces, a sudden shift in the atmosphere sent shivers down our spines. With an ominous rumble, the heavens seemed to respond to the destruction of the cursed artifact. Rain poured from the sky in torrents, accompanied by booming thunder and electrifying lightning. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil that had engulfed us inside the mansion. Fear gnawed at our hearts as we watched nature's fury unfold, wondering if the malevolent spirit was retaliating. We took shelter within the mansion, huddled together, hoping that the storm would pass quickly. When the rain finally ceased, we cautiously stepped outside, only to find an unsettling sight. The remnants of the destroyed clock had vanished, leaving no trace behind. It was as though the cursed artifact had dissolved into the very fabric of eternity. In the distance, we noticed a lone figure, a shadowy silhouette standing amidst the mist. Before we could approach, the figure vanished, leaving us with more questions than answers. Who or what had been observing us throughout this ordeal? We may never know. Story 15. My VR game is haunting me, trapped in a nightmarish reality. It all started a week ago when I purchased a highly anticipated VR game called Phantasmic Realms. The game boasted ultra-realistic graphics and claimed to push the boundaries of virtual reality. Little did I know that it would push the boundaries of my sanity too. At first, everything seemed fine. The game was stunning, and I immersed myself in its eerie world without any worries. However, as I progressed through the levels, things started to get weird. Subtle glitches here and there, unsettling whispers in the background, and disturbing visual distortions that felt more lifelike than they should have. I brushed it off as part of the game's design until one night when I took off my VR headset and the creepy ambience seemed to linger in the room. It felt like a chilling presence, a lurking shadow in the corner of my vision. I shook it off as a consequence of extended VR use and went to bed, trying to forget the unease. But that night, the real horror began. As I closed my eyes, I found myself standing in the same virtual environment from the game, only it was no longer a game. The line between the virtual and reality had blurred entirely. I could feel the cold ground beneath my feet, smell the putrid air, and hear my own panicked breaths. I tried to remove the VR headset, but my hands wouldn't obey. It was like I was trapped in this nightmarish world with no escape. Panic overwhelmed me as I wandered through this twisted realm, trying to find a way out. The once beautiful landscapes of the game were now twisted, distorted versions of themselves, inhabited by grotesque creatures that seemed to feed off my fear. Days began to blend together as I struggled to survive in this alternate dimension. I encountered other players who had fallen victim to the same fate, their faces contorted with despair. We formed a small group, seeking any clues that might lead us back to the real world. But every attempt ended in failure, and the lurking presence grew stronger, feeding on our hope and sanity. During one particularly terrifying night, a haunting figure emerged from the darkness. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its grotesque smile sent shivers down my spine. The entity seemed to control the nightmarish world, and it took pleasure in tormenting us. We could hear its malicious laughter echoing through the twisted landscapes. As time passed, the line between my true self and my in-game avatar began to blur. I couldn't remember my life outside of this nightmarish place, and my thoughts were becoming intertwined with the character I played in the game. It was as if my identity was being consumed by this malevolent virtual reality. Hope was dwindling, and I feared that I would be stuck in this hellish dimension forever. But one day, as I stood on the edge of despair, I found a hidden message in the game. It was a cryptic clue that hinted at a ritual that could break the curse and return us to the real world. With renewed determination, we gathered the necessary items and followed the instructions. The process was terrifying, and the lurking presence tried to stop us at every turn. But we pressed on, holding on to the faintest glimmer of hope. And then, as if by some miracle, the world around us began to crumble. The nightmarish landscapes twisted and distorted, the grotesque creatures faded away, and the entity's malicious laughter turned into agonizing screams. With one last surge of strength, we ripped off our VR headsets, and suddenly, we were back in our own bodies. We had made it out, but the experience left deep scars on our minds. I don't think any of us will ever forget the horrors we endured in that nightmarish alternate dimension.